恭敬大德三听，为此法会，即一切众生，经转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，速证无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss, and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo saranto suchatoye alahati sanmyao sanputoche. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it, and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Hello everyone, I'm Mitofo and welcome back to this week's exploration of the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra. Let's chant Medicine Master Buddha's name 7 times before we get to the sutra. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. 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 Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one. Okay, let me change the slides. Okay, just let me confirm. You all can see the slides. Is that right? I forgot to ask.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We can.
Okay, thank you. So just let me get a sip of water, excuse me. Okay, so just to continue from last week, there's one detail regarding the story about Suba and his father Todeya. Todeya was the unfortunate person who, because of his stinginess, was reborn as a dog. So one detail I forgot to mention was that he, after being born as a dog, actually his next birth was in the hells. Yeah, poor guy. He was reborn in the hells. But in the long run, we all know that he's going to be Buddha number 8 after Shakyamuni Buddha. Yeah. Okay. Do we have, if anyone has any questions or remarks, anything they want to share, just unmute your microphone as usual, or you can type it into the chat box. Okay, let's continue with today's sutra. Okay, I'm going to put my palms together as I read this section of the sutra. We have 3 slides of the sutra today. Moreover, Manjushri. Okay, so this is the Shakyamuni Buddha who's speaking. It says, moreover, Manjushri, there may be beings who delight in perversity and engage in legal disputes, bringing trouble to others as well as themselves. In their actions, speech, and thoughts, they create ever-increasing amounts of evil karma. Never willing to benefit and forgive others, they scheme to harm one another instead. They pray to the spirits of the mountain forests, trees, and graves. They kill living beings in order to make sacrifices of blood and flesh to the Yaksha and Rakshasa ghosts. They write down the names of their enemies and make images of them, and then they hex those names and images with evil mantras. They summon Paralysis Ghosts, cast hexes, or command corpse racing ghosts to kill or injure their enemies. However, if the victims hear the name of medicine master Vaidurya like Tathagata, then all those evil things will lose their power to do harm. The evildoers will become kind to one another. They will attain benefit, peace, and happiness, and no longer cherish thoughts of malice, affliction, or enmity. Everyone will rejoice and feel content with what they have. Instead of encroaching upon each other, they will seek to benefit one another. Okay, so this is an interesting part of the sutra. Let's go and look at it again. Okay, so this was the first slide. The Buddha explains to Manjushri Bodhisattva about beings who delight in perversity. What's being perverse? It's anything that you do that's unreasonable or unnatural or unacceptable according to the normal ways that people do things, or society, or what culture accepts, or from a moral or ethical or virtue point of view, that's unacceptable. So that's being perverse. And then it's interesting because the way it's described, bringing trouble to others as well as themselves. So what Shufu says about this? Shufu says that people or beings, not just people, but any living being who kind of has the kind of logic or personality or character, says people like that deny truth, confounding right or wrong. They mix things up. Okay, there's no clear line. Everything's gray, and they try to justify everything to themselves. Shufu says these people, they stir up trouble for no reason, and they use false principles to bully others. And what they do is they take advantage of the legal system. They file suits, they take people to courts, they use very illogical arguments. So because they have an understanding of the legal system, they take advantage or they manipulate the legal system to try to get what they want. Or at the very least, they they just give other people trouble. And if they lose, they continue fighting, they appeal, they will, to the point of death, they will not give up. Why? Because they are unreasonable. And behind this character, this unreasonableness, is greed, anger, and ignorance. And because they are filled with greed, anger, and ignorance, they are not aware of right and wrong, or they don't want to. They prefer to be that way. Their speech, their actions, their thoughts are filled. They easily can resort. There's no second thinking about anger that leads to hate, killing, for example, or stealing, or sexual misconduct, or lying, or harsh speech. Any of the 10 unwholesome conducts. There is no conscience, I guess. There's no inner voice telling them not to do things like that. They are either unaware, or they don't want to accept cause and effect. They're not afraid of the conditions that they're creating for themselves. So Shufu says they get involved in endless vengeful deeds and feuds. And speaking about feuds, I remember a few years ago, there was a documentary on, let me see if I can remember this. It was southern Albania. Yes, Albania is in southern Europe, and if I'm not mistaken, it is. If you not sure where Albania is, it is north of Greece, and it is across the sea from Italy. So it's that part of the world. And in Albania, in I think the northern part of Albania, there's a local law called the Kanun, Kanun. It's been in existence, I think, for a few hundred years. And the Kanun covers how people live their lives. I think there are 12 laws or 12 books in the Kanun law. And one of the laws is about honor. And if someone has wronged you or your family, I think the law somewhat states that the only way you can regain honor for yourself or your family is to wrong that right with how you say, with a life for a life, or an eye for an eye. That means whatever someone has done to you, you have to do the same back. If not, you actually lose honor. People disrespect you. If you have been wrong, and say if you go out, people will actually remind you that you haven't done anything to regain your honor. So there's a lot of community or peer pressure involved. So what has this resulted in? At present moment, the documentary showed that there were families that were afraid to leave their homes. So this law used to be only, enforced on male members of the family. So if someone killed a male member of your family, then one male member of your family has to take revenge on a male member of the other family to kill them back. And this way you restore the honor of your family and the respect that the community provides you. But in modern times, it is no longer restricted to male members. Women and children can be targets as well. So what happens is there are children who have grown up their entire lives not being able to leave their homes. They literally spend their whole lives at home because the moment they go outside, they are in danger of being killed. So there's something like 60 or 70 families who are affected this way. There are couples in their elderly couples who, because of feuds that have been going on for centuries, who have personally no part in what was done. Like the children, they don't even know what's going on. But because of their bloodline, the feud has carried down to generation, and there are people out to kill them because of what their ancestors did to their own families a long time ago. So that's what's happening. I think if you Google Kanun, Kanun, you'll be able to find videos or articles or the same documentary that I saw. So when someone is kind of like that and either engage in blood feuds or going to court to cause other people trouble, they don't realize that in their efforts to create trouble for others, that they're also creating a lot of trouble for themselves, because their minds will not be at rest. They'll be constantly, their thoughts will be consumed by all these malicious acts of revenge or troublemaking, and they never stop to consider what, or to experience what it would be like to have a calm mind that's free of unwholesome thoughts, or being consumed by unwholesome thoughts, and how peaceful it could be for themselves. Yeah, so without that experience, they just, how you say, I think there's an enjoyment, there's a very perverse enjoyment in when you're in that mode, without realizing the inner stress that they're creating, either for themselves or for the loved ones and their families or their co-workers and others. So this is not to say that justice is bad. Justice is actually can serve many. There's a lot of positive things about justice, but I think the problem is once we get attached to wanting a certain outcome. Like, for example, if you feel that you have been wrong and then you use the justice system to try to find justice, that's okay. That's why we have the justice system, to protect people. But I think once someone gets attached to saying, I want the justice system I want the system to do this to that person, only then will I be satisfied. That attachment then creates suffering for ourselves. And it, whatever potential for happiness or for calmness that we have, for joy, gets taken over by our attachment. So I guess if we are involved in, I think the skillful way when it comes to things such as this is to look at where we form our attachments to a desired outcome or to something we wish for. And it also kind of takes us away from our ability to forgive. And without the ability to forgive, every time we feel that we have been wrong, we can recognize the suffering that we create for ourselves all over again. Maybe the incident gets repeated in our minds and we work ourselves up into more and more agitation or stress. I'm not sure about you all, but I think most of us are able at one point of lives to see that we've done this before, we've gone through this cycle. Okay, let's go on to the next part of the sutra. The next part of the sutra talks about how to not just a person's unreasonable quest to bring trouble to people can extend beyond, normal, like the legal system, and you go into the supernatural, where you ask for supernatural help from spirits. Shufu says that what people do is that they offer meat, fish, liquor, and then what happens is that these spirits consume the liquor, and then once they are drunk, the spirits do actually get drunk, according to Shufu. Then they cause a lot of trouble, and because they're persuaded by food and offerings, then what these ghosts and spirits do is they use their spiritual abilities, and yes, they do have spiritual abilities or demonic powers to create trouble for the intended victim. So Shufu says that ghosts and spirits usually occupy large trees that are several hundreds of years old. And it's not the trees themselves are spirits, but these trees become like in the Pali Sutras, they have encounters where the tree is like an apartment complex. So a huge tree can house multiple entities, not just like one spirit per tree, but there are many. So depending on which part of the world you come from and the culture you come from that part of the world, either you just nod your head and go, yep, that's how things are. Ghosts and spirits and hexes and sacrifices of blood, flesh, and spirits of mountain forests, etc., etc. Or you just, you kind of like shake your head, you squint your eyes, and you go, I don't know about this. Like I don't think it's like that. You are skeptical. Okay, so there's a next slide that talks about Shufu has more thoughts about ghosts and spirits. I have personal stories or personal encounters or family encounters for those of you who are skeptical. So growing up in Malaysia, Malaysia we have the Malays, and then we have the Chinese and the Indians, and all three cultures have our own stories or our own ways that makes one a believer. And Malaysia borders Thailand, and Thailand as well are full of supernatural stuff. Which brings me to my story. When I was growing up, when I was very young, this story was told to me by my mom. We had a neighbor, and the neighbor was a couple, a young couple. The lady was from Thailand, and her husband was a British man. Okay, so two people from very different parts of the world. This lady was from Thailand, kept two spirits in her home. Okay, and apparently the spirits were the spirits were the spirits of two unborn children. I'm not sure about the details, but either they were stillborn or aborted. I don't really know, but that was what was told. That was what she told my mother. And if I remember correctly, there would be a dollhouse in her house, and the dollhouse was the home for the spirits. And the reason why she did this was to protect their home. And not just that, her husband, the British man, would, I'm not sure, complain or remark, but he found it a bit creepy. And he would tell my dad that at night he would hear voices of children or laughter, children's laughter, and footsteps around the house when it was just him and the wife. So I guess it kind of freaked him out, but he probably trusted the wife. And one day the house was broken into, and when the police came, they found the robber just sitting on the ground, on the floor of the living room, just given up. And apparently the robber said that he tried to find a way out after coming into the house. He tried opening every door, every window, trying to find a way out, but he kept coming back to the same place. Yeah. And the story ends with when this lady, I think her name was Anita. My mom would know. I think Anita. When Anita got pregnant, she thought it wasn't a good idea to be like a foster mother to the two young spirits, I guess. So she found another home for them, I guess, with someone else. Yeah, so that's one of the stories that I have for those skeptics. Okay, let's move on. um, so this is Shufu's commentary from the Shurangama Sutra. Shufu says, in studying the Shurangama mantra, we have learned that there are all sorts of ghosts in every conceivable form. Their appearances depend on the retribution they are undergoing. Many of the phrases in the Shurangama mantra are the names of kings, of ghosts and spirits, such as yakshas, speedy ghosts, rakshasas or fearsome ghosts, soul guarding ghosts, corpse guarding ghosts, pisachas or essence eating ghosts, pubandas or paralysis ghosts, large bodied ghosts, insane ghosts, stinky ghosts, putanas or foul smelling ghosts, heat ghosts, chilly ghosts, shadowy ghosts, musical ghosts, flower eating ghosts, fetus eating ghosts, grease eating ghosts, lamb light eating ghosts, grain eating ghosts, and so on. Okay, that's not even the full list. There's more. And Shufu says their transformations are infinite and inexhaustible. So I guess, I trust Shufu 100%. I think it's just like people. If you look at people, there are all kinds of people. Physically, in terms of character, in terms of personality, we have different professions, we have different languages, we have just different. Yeah. So I guess it's just like that. And so coming back to the sutra, Sutra talks about Yaksha and Rakshasa ghosts. Okay, so we're not going to talk about Yaksha ghosts today or speedy ghosts because later in the Sutra there will be a section where we have the 12 great Yaksha generals or king Rakshas who speak to the Buddha. So we'll cover Yakshas in the later part of our classes, which they're very interesting. Okay, uh, and there's Rakshasa Ghost, and then there's also Paralysis Ghost. Let's briefly mention Paralysis Ghost or Kobanda Ghost before we go to what Rakshasas are, because there's a very interesting story, at least to me. Shufu says that Kumbandas are barrel-shaped ghosts. I guess that means they are really huge and round, and that these ghosts paralyze people. So apparently what happens is that when you're sleeping, and sometimes people get sleep paralysis, where you kind of know that you are lying there, and you want to move or you want to scream, you want to say something, but you can't. You are paralyzed, and then you open your eyes to find that you can't move, you can't speak. And Shufu says at its worst case, people can actually die. So sleep paralysis is a thing, and there are people who explain who use modern science to try to explain what sleep paralysis is. Shufu says that if you have yang energy, what's yang energy? Yang energy is what bodhisattvas are full of. It is considered yang energy is what you get from practice, from practicing virtue, from having compassion, kindness, is a how you say it's a solidity in your character, in your virtue, that is unmoved by mundane things. It's like a how you say think of a very like a great hero, a great general, but one that it has full of principle. Someone that you can trust fully if you are someone who doesn't do anything wrong, that they will protect you. Okay, so that's kind of like yang energy. Shufu say if you have yang energy, then you have nothing to worry about and they can't do anything to you. These ghosts are only effective on those who have yin energy. Yin energy comes from dark, unwholesome thoughts. So Shufu says what is meant by yang, it means always being happy, truly happy in your self nature. Okay, not just like happy, crazy happy, but happy in your self nature. Not just laughing at the surface of things. It refers to the extreme bliss experience in your inherent nature. So it comes from practice. Conversely, Shofu says that if your self nature, if you're always worried and depressed, you're always afflicted, you're upset and you're distressed all the time, then that's a characteristic of being yin. And for people who are more on the yin side, it makes it very easy for ghosts to affect you. Yeah. So Shiva says, yang belongs to the spirit, and yin is more on the ghostly side. And people who practice the Buddha path have pure yang energy and also light. Yeah. Let me see what else Shiva says. So Shiva says people who know can take one look at you and they can tell if you have like dark energy, which is yin, or like white energy or light, which is yang. So I have a story here, and this story comes from CDTV. So when let me see, in 2009, I think 2009, I moved to CDTV, and what happens at CDTV is that if you move there as a male, either as a volunteer or for a longer stay in mind, or for a you just go and join the one of the sessions or the retreats that we have, most likely you would be put in the Great Compassion House courtyard, which has 1, 2, 3, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know how many. At least 10. 10 10 buildings, and in these buildings there are rooms where you can stay in. So usually you get sent to Annex 1. Annex 1 is the first one that needs to be filled up, and then some of the other annexes are used for the male students from our schools. So there are many stories about one particular room in Annex 1. Is the last room, is a room that's closest to Tathagata monastery, which is where the monks live, and is the room opposite the shared bathroom in Annex 1. And there are I think there are 2 bunk beds. Total of 4 people can sleep in this particular room. And there are many stories about how people who come for a few days and they live in they get assigned that room, that they experience Kumbanda ghosts. They have this at night. They wake up and they can't move, they can't talk. Yeah, I myself, having lived in Annex 1 for many years, have not experienced anything, anything weird. But then my room was a totally different room. My room was the opposite of that room, on the opposite end of the corridor. Yeah. So it's interesting that in this sutra, that Shufu's commentary on this sutra is that people who seek favors from ghosts and spirits with your offerings, they offer liquor. There are videos. I remember a video many years ago that I stumbled upon YouTube that shows a festival in Taiwan. And in this festival, I'm not sure, because it's all in Chinese, I'm not sure who it refers to, but a person goes into a trance. And this person, I think they are paying homage to Chelan Pusat, the Bodhisattva. No, I'm not sure. Okay, they are paying homage to one of the guardian spirits of the area that has a black face. So I think that's Wanti Bodhisattva. But one thing that's not for sure is that when this person gets possessed, whether is it what or who possesses this person. But what I find interesting is that when this person is doing what happens when this person gets possessed is that he walks the streets of Taiwan in that area, and people who need help then offer the spirit a bottle of white liquor. And it's amazing to watch, because what this person does is he opens a bottle, and at one go is a huge bottle, is at least maybe 750 milliliters or 1 liter bottle. I think that's what, 32 ounces. And he drinks the entire bottle of hard liquor in one go, like in one gulp. He puts it to his mouth, he empties the bottle, and then he gives a sweet or something to the person, he blesses the person, and then he walks, and a few steps later someone offers him another bottle of liquor, and he does the same thing. And I'm not sure how many bottles of liquor that he drinks in at one setting, but it's a lot. And no ordinary person can actually do that. It's not something a ordinary person, a normal human body can accept, can undergo. It's a very interesting. They have a lot of videos. It's really, really interesting. Okay, so let's come to Rakshasa ghosts. Rakshasa ghosts, Shufu says, are powerful ghosts. They have abilities. Powerful ghosts that eat people. Okay, one of the interesting things about Rakshasa ghosts happens when someone becomes a monk. When someone takes the full precepts to be a fully ordained bhikshu, and my experience bore that out. There's a part in the, at least in the Mahayana tradition, there's a part when we take the precepts, when the preceptor asks you, are you a great hero? And you are supposed to answer in a very, heroic manner. You raise your voice, and you full of conviction, and that conviction is very real and natural at that point, because you're taking the full precepts, and you answer, yes, I am a great hero. So Shufu says that when a person answers that question, are you a great hero, what happens is that a Rakshasa ghost, he says, Shufu says this, Shufu says, an earth-traveling Rakshasa ghost, a being of our world who records good and evil, says, now the Buddha's retinue has increased by 1, and Mara's retinue has decreased by 1. So what this earth-traveling Rakshasa ghost then does is that he tells a space-traveling Yaksha ghost about this news, that, someone has just taken the great precepts and the Buddha's family has increased by 1. So then what this space traveling Yaksha goes is that he then travels to space, and then he spreads this news to the 6th desire heaven, which is the heaven where Mara is. Mara is the king of the 6th desire heaven. And then when Mara hears this news, Mara becomes afraid, because he has lost one more person to the Buddha's family. Yeah. And in case someone has the question of, so Rakshasa ghosts have powers, but how do you become a Rakshasa ghost? Okay. This is from the Shurangama Sutra, Shufu's commentary. Okay, Shufu explains it this way. Shufu says, he says your basic purpose. Okay, so actually this is not Shufu, this is Shakyamuni Buddha. He's explaining this part of the sutra to Ananda, Venerable Ananda. So the Buddha says, your basic purpose in cultivating samadhi is to transcend the wearisome defilements. But if you do not renounce your thoughts of killing, you will not be able to get out of the dust. What does the dust mean? It means you will not be able to get out of the wheel of rebirth, of samsara. So the Buddha says, even though one may have certain wisdom and the manifestation of Chan Samadhi, one is certain to enter the path of spirits if one does not cease killing. At best, a person will become a mighty ghost. On the average, one will become a flying yaksha, a ghost leader or ghost king, or the like. At the lowest level, one will become an earth-bound Rakshasa. So basically what the Buddha is saying is that if you practice the path and you also practice chant samadhi or meditation, but if you do not eliminate desire and thoughts of killing, then she says, this is what happens. Worst case scenario, you become an earthbound Rakshasa, and best case scenario, you become a mighty ghost, like maybe a ghost king. Yeah, but on average, you become either a flying ghost or like an average ghost. I'm not sure what that means, an average ghost. What else has the Buddha say to this? Let me see if this is Shufu or this is the Buddha. Okay, I think this is the Buddha speaking as well. He says, when living beings uphold the prohibitive precepts in their minds, their bodies will become buoyant and feel light and clear. Okay, this is the Buddha speaking. When they uphold mantra seals in their minds, they will command a heroic and resolute perspective. When they have the desire in their minds to be born in the heavens, in their dreams they will have thoughts of flying and ascending. When they cherish the Buddha lands in their minds, then the sagely realms will appear in a shimmering vision, and they will serve the good and wise advisors with little thought for their own lives. Okay, this is very interesting. And about the dreams of flying. Okay, any of you who find that you have started practice of meditation and you are trying to control your thoughts of greed and anger and ignorance, and you find that you have dreams of flying, there you go. This is where it comes from. Okay. So the Buddha continues by saying, says Ananda, although the thought varies, the lightness and uplifting is the same. With flight and ascension, one will not sink, but will naturally become transcendent. This is called the external aspect. Endowed solely with thought, they will fly and can certainly be reborn in the heavens above. If they fly from the heart, and if they have blessings and wisdom as well as pure vows, then their hearts will spontaneously open and they will see the Buddhas of the 10 directions and all their pure lands, and they will be reborn in whichever one they wish. Okay, so there's always questions about, can I do this, but one still retain my wish to be reborn in Amitabha, Buddha's pure land, or there's actually someone who preferred to be born in Medicine Master, Buddha's pure land before. Now you see, Buddha says that if someone practices well, and it says that second paragraph, it says endowed solely with thought. What does this mean, endowed solely with thought? It means that you have very little emotion. What's emotion? In this aspect or in this context, you can say emotion can be likened to desire. So and thought is the opposite of that. So thought means it's based on virtue, it's based on precepts. So for someone who practices like that, there's a natural buoyancy in the spirit. There's a lightness and uplifting aspect to the point that even in your dreams, you dream that you're flying. Yeah, and then the Buddha says that if at the same time you have blessings and wisdom as well as vows to guide your thoughts, then not only will you see the Buddhas of the 10 directions, but it's up to you where you want to be reborn, in whichever pure land. You want to be reborn in Amitabha Buddha's pure land, there you go. It's up to you. No one's going to force you. You're not going to be pulled away from what you want. Okay. So these are for people who practice that way. Okay. Now, Buddha says, when they have more thought than emotion, meaning they're not just thought, but they have emotion as well, but less emotion than thought. Okay, they are not quite as ethereal, and so they become flying immortals, great mighty ghost kings, space traveling yakshas, or earth-traveling Rakshasas who roam the form heavens, going where they please without obstruction. So the Buddha explains that people who have practiced before, but either have not given up thoughts of killing, or still are rooted in desire, which is emotion, but because of their practice, their thoughts, or the logic side, non-emotional side outweighs their emotions. Then this is how you become a spirit, a ghost or spirit. These terms are used interchangeably. Spirit usually refers more on the positive side of things, and ghost is more on the yin side. But this is how you become either a flying yaksha or a rakshasa that can travel through the heavens. And then after this, the Buddha gives more guide to Ananda and the monks. The Buddha says that after my extinction in the Dharma ending age, these hordes of ghosts and spirits will abound, spreading like wildfire as they argue that eating meat will bring one to the Bodhi way. So the Buddha specifically links desire to eat the eating of meat. And he says, Ananda, I permit the bhikshus to eat 5 kinds of pure meat. This meat is actually a transformation brought into being by my spiritual powers. It basically has no life force. You Brahmans live in a climate so hot and humid that on such sandy and rocky land that vegetables will not grow. Therefore, I have had to assist you with spiritual powers and compassion. Okay, for those of you who have not come across this might be very interesting. So during a certain time when the Buddha was still around, monks, the Buddha specifically allowed monks to eat bhikshus to consume meat, but it was under 5 conditions. The first condition is the flesh of an animal that the bhikshu did not see being killed, did not hear being killed, and the bhikshu is sure that it was not killed to feed the bhikshu. So meaning the offering would be spontaneous, it would be someone's own lunch, but the moment he saw a bhikshu or mendicant, something moved him to offer the lunch. So it wasn't a planned out lunch, like, oh, tomorrow. It wasn't something like, oh, tomorrow, I'm inviting a monk or the Buddha and the monks to my home tomorrow, and I'm going to sacrifice, 10 cows so that they can eat meat. Not like that. If it's like, if it's under those circumstances, then the bhikshus would not consume the meat. The fourth condition is that the animal died of natural causes. And the fifth condition is, meat of, flesh that is the leavings of an animal after birds have scavenged the corpse. So, for example, animal has died or has been killed, and then birds or other animals come and feed on the body, and then the leftover meat is then the bhikshus can consume. Okay. Not only that, the Buddha says that actually the meat that has been consumed by the monks all this while is not real meat. Okay, so for all of you in the US, okay, who have been trying out the Beyond and Impossible, which I have before coming back to Malaysia. The Buddha is the original Beyond Meat, Impossible Meat manufacturer. So this kind of meat, Shufa says, has no life force, no consciousness, no temperature, no breath. So the original Impossible and Beyond Meat was done a long time ago by the Buddha. Yeah. Okay, let's go down a bit more. Okay, so Buddha says, because of the magnitude of this kindness and compassion, what you eat that tastes like meat is merely said to be meat. In fact, however, it is not. After my extinction, how can those who eat the flesh of living beings be called the disciples of Shakya? You should know that these people who eat meat may gain some awareness and may seem to be in samadhi, but they are all great Rakshasas. When their retribution ends, they are bound to sink into the bitter sea of birth and death. They are not disciples of the Buddha. Such people as this kill and eat one another in a never-ending cycle. How can such people transcend the triple realm? Okay. The Buddha continues by saying, Bodhisattvas and bhikshus who practice purity will not even step on grass in the pathway, even less will they pull it up with their hand. How can one with great compassion pick up the flesh and blood of living beings and proceed to eat his fill? So the first sentence here about stepping on grass, bhikshus, we avoid walking on grass. We don't even, pluck flowers or cut flowers as offerings to the altar. For the altar, we don't do that at all. And that is why for the Theravada bhikshus, they don't do farming because they don't, they avoid digging holes in the ground so as to not kill any living beings. Yeah. Okay. Having gone through this, okay, we have to understand that when it comes to the Dharma, everything that we learn is for ourselves. It is not for us to look at other people and how they do things and judge them and, say right, wrong, or they should be doing this or they shouldn't be doing that. Everyone has their own conditions. Okay, so the Dharma should never be used for us to go and police other people and look at what they're doing, but instead for our own reflection and our own practice. As long as that happens, then you do not create trouble for others, like a Rakshasa ghost. At the same time, you're not creating trouble for yourself. Okay, which is the whole point of what we're doing with today's part of the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra. Shakyamuni Buddha in the sutra has highlighted how the extent, like the extreme extent of how unreasonable people can be. So we don't want to be that. So having gone through what the Buddha says in the Shurangama Sutra, refrain from looking at how other traditions or other people do their practice. Okay, because it's not going to bring you any good. Okay, we use these teachings for ourselves. Always look inward. Always focus on yourself and don't worry about others. All right? Okay. And then, because we're running out of time. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. Let me ask, does anyone have any reflections, stories, questions? I know usually when it comes to, ghosts and spirits, especially people in Asia, they have a lot of stories to share. Anyone?
Yes, Dharma Master. This is
Yes,
Sharon.
Sharon. Yes.
I have a colleague, and he lives in Klang. So
Okay.
he is a practitioner of yoga, or
Okay,
rather
Sharon,
meditation.
is this a question or is this something you want to share?
Yes, I'd like to share a story
Okay,
about
all right. So I'm going
about.
to quickly excuse myself, but I can hear you, Sharon, and everyone else can. So please continue.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So what happened was this family, they practice meditation every day in the morning, and they are very they are good cultivators. So one night, two burglars broke into their house, and they actually spoiled the door. And when they went in to take whatever they wanted, they couldn't. They were how should I say? They just couldn't leave the place because they were like frozen in their places. They couldn't move. So when the family woke up for their meditation at 4 a.m., they were shocked to find these two burglars standing frozen there and looking very sheepishly, saying that they were apologizing and saying very sorry, you know. Then they say we broke the door. So this man, my colleague, say, okay, so now how you broke my door? How are you going to how are you going to get out? So they say they sort of ask for forgiveness, and I don't know how this man did it, but somehow they released him. So the two burglars actually paid for the repair for the door. So just now the story by Dharma Master about the dollhouse, I can relate to it because there is some truth about cultivation, and that somehow the house was protected by these some spirits that we don't know about. That's all. Thank you. Amitofo.
Thanks, Sharon. Anyone else? Well, if you are, in growing up in Malaysia, you are bound to have a lot of stories, I guess. Yeah. Things like this, possession, they're all very common. And coming back to Sharon's story that she just shared, later on, we'll discover more, because there's a section in the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra, as well as the Earth Store Sutra, that the ghost kings come to the Buddha and say that whoever, they pledge their allegiance to the Buddha, and then they say that whoever practices that their retinue of spirits and ghosts, the Rakshas, the Rakshasas, the Yakshas, will actually protect you and be your bodyguard, to the extent that not even bad news will pass by your ears. So we'll come to that section in due time. Miss Yap, you have something to share?
Yeah, I had a question.
Yes.
I always advise my friends who say that when I go in to stay in a hotel, before I went into the room, I should give it a knock so as to pay respect or to alert some kind of spirit in the room, just to tell them that we are coming in to stay like for a night or two. What's your opinion on that, Sifu?
I've heard of that, okay, and I do not have an opinion other than if it makes you feel better, then there's no harm in doing that. I think the important thing is the respectful part. Whether you deal with anyone or anything, being respectful is a very good virtue to have. But later we'll cover in the sutra about how just by practicing alone, you'll be covered. And we don't have time for today, so I'll do it next week. But in the Shufu explains that, I think, did we cover it in the earlier slides? Shufu says that Shurangama mantra are the names of all the ghosts and spirits of the names and of, sorry, let me say that again. Shurangama mantra has many names of great ghosts and spirits who command retinues. And in the Pali Sutras, there's one sutra which I'll share next week, which is the same as well. It was given to the Buddha, or it was mentioned to the Buddha by one of the four heavenly kings. And in that sutta, it contains the name of all the great Yaksha generals, so that specifically for the purpose of, if a monk who is in the wilderness were to be seized by a spirit, that the monk can use this as a protection spell, very much like the Shurangama mantra. So it's a very common thing. So yes, you can knock on the door if it makes you feel better, but I think the attitude that you keep in the heart is a lot better, and to practice more, to practice so that we are more on the yang side than the yin side, and how you say? I'll share this encounter or this revelation that has made me try not to be too smart for myself. So growing up in Malaysia, when we travel 20, 30, maybe more than 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, we didn't have proper highways with rest stops where you can stop during your journey and use the restroom. So sometimes the roads are they're not proper highways, and if you had to use the bathroom, if you're a child and it's difficult for a child, you would find people stopping by the roadside so the child can relieve themselves. And as we are told that either before or after, or preferably before and after, you put your palms together and you kind of, I think it's a combination, or at least in my experience, a combination of excusing yourself, saying you have to relieve yourself, and just being respectful of whatever entity there might be in the area. Okay, so I grew up with that, and
Yeah,
it's a very
thanks, Vasu.
okay. And
I
it's
think I have kind of come across those as well from young.
yeah. I'm not sure about other parts of the world, but in Malaysia, that's like a is a thing everyone knows about, kind of like that. So when I wanted to become a monk, and when I was at CDTB, I in my mind I put that under superstition. In my mind, that was a more on superstition than anything grounded in fact. And so that was how I in my mind I saw that gesture. And then when I became a monk, you know what I discovered? Okay, when monks go to the bathroom, we have to snap our fingers 3 times. And the reason is to inform any entity that, okay, I'm going to, relieve myself here, and you should move away. So, and most monks do that. If you if you see a monk snap their fingers 3 times in the bathroom, that's why. Or sometimes those who cannot snap their fingers, they clap their hands. They make a sound 3 times. It's part of our. It's not a precept, but it's a one of the ways that we conduct ourselves in respect to living beings around us. So that has taught me to not be too dismissive of things just because I'm ignorant and I don't know any better. So Miss Yap, to your question about knocking on the door, there are other variations like placing your shoes in a certain way and things like that. If you do it, there's no harm. But in the Dharma, as how the Buddha and Shufu has taught us, there are other ways other things that we can do to keep ourselves safe, which is mantras and practicing virtue so that we are more on yang and less yin. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Vasu.
Yeah, and we'll come to those parts as well. And there are some stories I have about Rakshasas, which due to time constraints I couldn't share. So we'll continue with this next week. Yeah. Anyone else? Oh, I'm surprised. This is usually a topic that can stretch for a whole day. Yes, Wenbo.
Yeah, Dharma Master JinHe Shi. Yeah, I actually, now you talk about this, I kind of I might have actually a actual is it paralysis experience before, because I don't have enough young energy. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. All right. So let's transfer merit and then we'll continue next week. Okay. Let me end this slideshow. So I'll just finish off by saying there are some of the superstition that we have, or okay, some of the traditions and customs that we have. I think a lot of it has its roots. They have their reasons. Yeah. Okay. Let's dedicate merit. I'm going to put my palms together. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, let's do 3 bows to the Buddha and the Shofu. Okay, 3 bows to the Buddha. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Venerable Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. All right, everyone. I'm Itoffo, and we'll see you next week. Okay, bye-bye.